Hello, everybody. This is Nicky from Yoga Marlborough Ancients Best here in Blenheim, top of the south in New Zealand, bringing you some lockdown inspiration, some tips, talks, and upliftment. This inspiration came just as a way to share and connect and build community and hopefully give you some support. And today I'm really fortunate to have with me the beautiful Melisa Bassett. So I'm going to just read you a little bit about what Melisa does. That's why I have my glasses on. So Melisa is an embodiment and leadership coach, author, and serial entrepreneur. She supports mission-driven entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers to amplify their impact in the world from the inside out and bring more depth to their legacy through embodying their deepest truth, claiming their sovereignty, and living in alignment. Through her private one-to-one coaching and group experiences, she supports her clients to become the embodiment of their true mission through doing the deep inner work. She merges a wide variety of coaching, trauma-informed healing tools and modalities, and is known for her non-BS yet deeply compassionate approach. I can really vouch for that. She is, yeah, absolutely like that. Melisa is an expert on personal growth and inner work and is known for igniting people's infinite potential, reclaiming their power and leading from the heart. Her work has impacted hundreds of people globally around the world. And to learn more, you can connect with Melisa on Facebook or via her website, melisabassett.com. Melisa is also holding an online group breathwork workshop in September called Claiming Your Sovereignty. And you can reach out to Melisa and we'll have all the contact information there for her. And I've known Melisa for a long time, since almost as long as I've been in Marlborough, and we've come into contact through yoga and Ayurveda and different ways. And I've also worked with Melisa and she's given me a huge amount of support this year. So I just feel, yeah, really grateful to her. She's just a lovely person. And Melisa, thank you for being here. And how's your lockdown going?
Oh, thank you so much, Nikki. And thank you for inviting me. When the message came through, I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a fun thing to do. Yeah, so my lockdown, to be honest, I'm loving it. It's been like a little vacation, even though we haven't been able to go anywhere, just being at home and just being able to find some time to relax, because I've got a shop that's open 7 days a week. Just, having that freedom just to be able to go about my day.
What about the flower business? Are you able to operate
that?
So
the flowers, of course, we're impacted as we went into lockdown. We had flowers to sell that we had to throw away, or in the end, I ended up pulling all the petals off and making a big happy birthday Talia, which is my daughter, on the lawn. So that was a beautiful surprise for her. And fortunately, because it's not as hot as it was in March last year when our flowers were just pumping. Fortunately, we've been able to keep the flowers on the plants because they haven't been growing as fast. And so, yeah, it's actually worked out okay in the end. So, yeah, I actually like lockdown. So I welcome a break.
No, it's so interesting. Some people have really found it, like you say, it's a break, it's a retreat, it's a little bit of a slowdown. And for other people, it's obviously the other way. It's more stressful, it's more difficult. So it's a whole range of experiences.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess that's where I sort of come in today to share a bit of my knowledge and expertise around the nervous system, because it really does depend how you're going to enjoy or not enjoy lockdown, depending on the current state of your nervous system. So yeah, that's really what I want to share with the audience today, just so they can have a deeper understanding about your natural default when we're in stressful times. And it also depends on your current capacity to handle stress. So how stressed you currently are is going to depend on how much more stress you can actually pile on top of that. So we all, yeah, you understand.
I saw a good example of that today. Someone had a sink with a tap turned on and the plug in, and the water just kept running over, and it was like trying to mop up the water, but the tap's still on. So you're full up already, and then it just keeps coming, So yeah.
And another analogy to that would be like a pressure cooker. And so if you're used to living in a survival pattern. It's like, you've got the lid on the pressure cooker, and every now and then you might just take, a little bit of steam out because you might just decide just to go for a walk, or you might let a little bit of steam out because you might take a bath. But there's still a lot of pressure there. And so if you dump something like lockdown on top of that, or you dump a crisis like an accident, or, a personal breakup or financial strife, it's too much for the nervous system, and it's going to throw you into goodness knows what.
I mean, I've seen it myself with burnout and things like that. Yeah. It's and I think it's becoming epidemic proportions,
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just really wanted to offer a little bit of psychoeducation around the nervous system and what it looks like when we might go into a situation which will either throw us into a survival pattern or will enhance our survival pattern that we're currently experiencing. So I work off the 4F stress archetype model, which is 4 different ways that we are either polarized in a stress response, or we're either in a hybrid. So we can have a complete polarization in one stress archetype, or we can have the hybrid where we might be a combination of both. Now, ultimately, we want to be able to have access to all archetypes in a really healthy way. So we want to have access to them in a way that serves us, not in a way that doesn't serve us and creates burnout or creates overwhelm or creates isolation. So just to give everybody a little bit of understanding of what the different archetypes are. So we've got our first one, which is the fight. So when you become, and I just want to say first, before I dive into those, because it's really important to understand, that what we're trying to achieve, no matter what archetype you are, whether or not that's polarized or hybrid, is we're trying to achieve safety. So no matter what we're doing, we're trying to feel safe. And they're just coping strategies that we're wired probably during childhood, that we learnt these different survival strategies during childhood, and they just become reinforced as we mature and get more things to feel stressed about. So just recognizing that it's just a way that we are wanting to feel safe. There's nothing wrong with each archetype. It's just a learned behavior. It's just a pattern, and it's something that once you recognize in yourself that you can create healthier ways of coping, so that you can almost like depolarize yourself or bring yourself back from a way of being that perhaps might not really be what it is that you desire for yourself. Because
a lot of times it could be just so automatic that we just slip straight into it and we're not even recognizing it. Yeah,
totally. It becomes our default. And when we're not paying attention, when we're not doing our self-care, when we're not looking after ourselves, or you're just constantly living in a survival pattern, then it's going to drive the show. It is complete autopilot. So just to explain the 4 different types, so we've got our fight type. So when you feel overly stressed, you might sort of feel like a little bit of the aggressor comes on, the controller, that sort of obsessive, that sort of type might sort of be showing up. Now that is, it might not necessarily, might just have sort of those angry outbursts or feel really frustrated with what's going on. All right, so that's the fight type. The flight type, which is more like me. I'm definitely a flight type. So I will be rushing around, worrying, this is me if I'm polarized in it, anxious, worried, panic, fear. We are the human doers, so we will be doing things constantly, busying, so we don't actually have to sit still and recognize what's going on. So that is the flight type. The freeze type is when, and it's often misdiagnosed as depression. So really check in. If you go to the doctor and you're showing all these different signs and symptoms, that sometimes that can be misdiagnosed as depression, the freeze type. So when you can't fight or flee a situation, and this is all the polyvagal theory, when you can't fight or flee a situation, you might actually go into what we call dorsal vagal shutdown, whereas you'll go into this freeze state, where it's almost like, you know, if you think about an animal, when they try and fight or flee, if they're going to get eaten by a predator, they'll often freeze.
Play dead.
It's when play dead, and it is a way of protecting yourself, of a way of feeling safe, is actually just going into that freeze state. So it'll look like or feel like disassociating, isolating, shutting down, numbing out, couch potato, that kind of thing, where you're just like, I don't want to do anything. I don't, you know, I'm just going to go into my little cabin and cave and just hide in there. So
could this be where some kind of addictive behaviors happen as well? You know, like where you don't want to face things. Could that happen in that state, or any state maybe?
Yeah, probably any state. Yeah, distracting yourself with, I mean, as far as a flight type, then we become the workaholics.
Yes,
the overachievers, the high performers, you know, and the fight types might become, you know, quite dictatorial. I mean, I don't want to, you know, sort of talk about any political leaders and things like that, but, you know, so there's different sort of characteristics that start to shine through when you come into those different states, but sort of addictive behaviors, they can sort of show up in any of them as well. And then the last one is fawning. So this one is probably not as well recognized as some of the other states. This is the people pleaser, but in this really polarized state, you might also feel like the victim. You might feel really powerless to what's going on in the world, and often scared to say what you really think. So those are the 4 different archetypes. And like I said in the beginning, it's just a survival strategy. It's just a way that, you know, you've learned as you've grown up to feel safe. And it is something that you can, I don't want to use the word control because, but you can create some more balance around by, first of all, just recognizing perhaps what's going on for you. And then what we're wanting to try and do after that is come back into our, what we call our window of tolerance, right? Okay. So our window of tolerance is if we think about a ladder, we want to be able to go up and down the ladder. So you might experience something during the day and it throws you into overwhelm or panic or fear or rage. So you want to be able to experience these different overwhelming emotions or these different experiences and not get stuck in it. Mm-hmm. So you want to go, right, shit, I'm feeling whatever, and have some tools to actually down-regulate your nervous system. So when we're in a fight or flight state, we're in hyper-arousal. So we want to be able to down-regulate our nervous system to bring us back into our window of tolerance. If we don't, we'll stay stuck in there. And then this is when, you know, it becomes this continual survival strategy, and we're releasing a lot of cortisol, adrenaline, and other different chemicals within the body, which become highly toxic. So you actually end up creating this toxic storm, this toxic stress within the body, which creates all sort of disease. You know, this is where our disease comes from. This is where our fibromyalgia and all those autoimmune things that, you know, that go on within the body. So it's so important that we're understanding of our nervous system, because otherwise we're going to create havoc.
Because a lot of those behaviors have become so habitual as well that we need to bring in some new habits to start to recondition our wiring, really, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just having some tools that you've got access to, because what I was saying before is you want to be able to go up and down the ladder. So you want to go, you know, this has just happened. It's thrown me into a dysregulated state, okay, I've got these different tools and strategies that I can actually downregulate my nervous system back into my window of tolerance, where I'm able to cope, where I'm able to be resilient, where I'm able to feel calm, alert, engaged, where I'm able to see possibilities and opportunities and actually make a decision from a place of ease, rather than feeling that you can't make it. Let me just say this: you cannot make a decision that's a really aligned, a really clear decision when you are hijacked, when your nervous system is hijacked. You just can't, because the natural way that the nervous system works is that your cognitive frontal cortex will shut down. So your frontal cortex will shut down, which is where we have access to a rational, logical, reasoning mind. And so you can't think your way out of a feeling problem. And when I say that, I mean because it's somatic, because it's within our body, it's within our nervous system. So you can't think your way out when you've got a dysregulated nervous system. You have to
shut down that capacity, haven't we? And we've gone into that more primitive, reptilian, if you want to call it, but really that responding directly to, survival. We're not beyond survival at that stage. And then we, like you say, we can't make intelligent, creative decisions with some perspective when we're in that stage. Yeah, absolutely.
You think you are, but and often when you never want to make a decision when you're in a dysregulated state, because it's often when you look back and you'll go, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. I wish I hadn't said that. So it's so important, even in relationships, that we offer ourselves the opportunity to regulate our nervous system back into our window of tolerance, because it will just save so many.
It takes a long time to repair, doesn't it? And I think it's that whole thing about taking some time out, taking a breath, taking a walk, maybe agreeing to talk about it in a few minutes or an hour or something. And again, that's around having some good self-awareness to be able to know that I'm not in the right frame of mind to have this conversation right now. It's not going to go well.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and honoring yourself in that moment and being able to create those boundaries around, look, now is not the time. I really need to go and resource myself. I need to regulate my nervous system. And, it will serve you in so many ways when you're able to recognize that and practice that. But it does, like you say, it does need a certain level of awareness. And that's why I'm so passionate about the psychoeducation around every single client that works with me. I'm like, right, let's talk about your stress archetype, because unless you know it, you're just going to be going through life with the same old patterns and ways and behaviors. So we need to know how it is that we operate, so we can find ways that are more, that serve us and the way that we truly want to show up in the world. So the other one is the hypoarousal, where we go into that sort of shut down freeze state, the freeze fawn. And so at that point, we actually want to up-regulate our nervous system. We want to bring some energy back into our body. We want to bring ourselves back into our window of tolerance, because we're so shut down at that point, and so you might start feeling like really lethargic and, I can't be bothered and I'm not motivated and I don't want to do any of that stuff. And I just want to pull the curtains on life, and I just want to, put my blinkers on, because I've been in both. Like, I've been depressed. I've wanted to get out of this life. I've been in both states where it's
painful.
Everything just feels too much.
It's so painful.
Yeah. So I've been in both spectrums. I've been polarized in both. My natural default is to be flight, but I have been, I have experienced that freeze, shut down, when I couldn't fight or flee the situation that I was in. so I really just wanted to be able to offer some tools around, different ways that we can bring ourselves back into our window of tolerance. And the first thing it's really important to understand is we resource in different ways depending on really our upbringing and how we learnt to resource when we were first brought into the world. And so the first way that we learn, because we are born with a sympathetic nervous system, and so the first way that we learn how to regulate our nervous system is through co-regulation. So that's through the regulation of another person's nervous system. And it's why it's so important, when we're bringing babies into this world, that we're able to have a well-regulated nervous system, because even in utero they will be picking up on the mother's stress and whether or not they're experiencing a lot of fear, or if there's a lot of volatility within the relationship, or whether or not their environment is safe. Everything that mother is experiencing, the baby is experiencing as well. So often babies are born already with a wiring of their nervous system. And so it's so important that co-regulation happens, in a really supportive, nourishing way. So the nervous system has an opportunity to have that safety. So the nervous system isn't born already, with
almost permanently, dysregulated. And I think a lot of parents maybe underestimate that, because they think the baby can't hear or they don't understand, but they don't need to. They understand everything through that, just through that energy,
I mean, they're purely feeling. We're born as purely it was purely sensation, and energy. So the first way is co-regulation, or one way I should say is co-regulation. And so depending on and you may not even know, but one way of knowing is whether or not when you feel overwhelmed, being in the presence of other people, is that a way that you can access a feeling of safety. Often when you have experienced not feeling safe in the presence of others, you might misread cues of body language, facial expressions, and so you might think that that what they're communicating through you to in their body language might be completely wrong. So sometimes co-regulation is not a way that we can actually bring ourselves back into our window of tolerance through the regulated nervous system of another person. So you obviously don't want to try co-regulation with somebody who's spun out, overwhelmed, or is feeling really mad about what's going on in the current world. Like, you don't want to try and co-regulate with their nervous system with someone who you feel safe with, that you can that you feel that sense of ease with, and that calmness. Like, those are the qualities that you're looking for when you're looking to co-regulate with another person's nervous system. So if that's not available to you, then of course self-regulation is the next one, where we're going to do something to resource and regulate our own nervous system. So that might look like, in a situation where you might feel a little bit overwhelmed, just removing yourself, putting on some binaural beats, listening to a meditation, going for a walk.
Yes.
Sometimes if we've experienced something that's brought a lot of energy into our body, we might actually need to get that energy out. So if you've experienced something that's really activated you in a way that maybe you feel angry, frustrated, you've got to get that energy out of the body. And you see dogs or animals when, they might get into a fight, and, they shake their body off. And so you've got to move that energy out of the body. And, so maybe it's doing some press ups, maybe it's punching the bed, getting the pillow in.
I read something recently, it was great. It had quite a few ways to sort of do that. And some of it was like laughter and breathing and exercise. And, there's quite a few different ways, but it's all about really getting the energy out, isn't it? Just releasing it.
Yes. Yeah. Because otherwise it'll stay stuck. And this is what happens. We get these energetic blocks within our system. So yeah, so getting that energy out of the body if you do, experience a situation where you have taken on somebody else's energy or feeling it yourself. Just mindfulness practices, just noticing what it is that you're thinking and feeling, and actually just acknowledging it, accepting it, and even just naming it. So I am feeling, or actually even a better one is I am noticing I am feeling. Because often what we do is we become instead of observing what it is that we're feeling, we identify with it and we become that thing. It's like, I'm anxious, I'm angry, I am overwhelmed. And there's nothing wrong with saying I am, but only in a way that it serves you. Like, I'm lovable, I'm enough, I'm worthy, I'm deserving. But when we actually say I am, and it's in a way that you're actually identifying with what you're feeling, then you almost become more powerless to what's going on. So separating yourself a little bit, not bypassing, but separating yourself a little bit, becoming the observer of what it is you're experiencing. I am noticing I'm feeling anxious. I'm noticing I'm feeling overwhelmed, angry, ... is actually a really
that's a
powerful
great practice
way.
I find it super useful myself, when I'm feeling upset, is to actually, I have the list of all the feelings.
Yeah,
and
you introduced that to me and I love it.
Yeah, so just really going through there and understanding and realizing that the feelings are just giving us information,
It's just a data point.
We don't need to try and push them away. We need to look at them and say, hey, what are they telling me that I need right now? And once we change that frame of reference, I think we can sit with the discomfort a little bit longer and learn from it rather than try and repress it. I think it's a great practice, really useful.
Absolutely. And it's not something, to be honest, we're really taught, unless you had a really mindful parent that was able to validate your emotions or mirror back at you perhaps what it is you're experiencing.
The other thing too, Melissa, is I think a lot of parents don't acknowledge children's feelings. They say, don't be angry, don't be sad, don't complain, be quiet. You hear that all the time. And then they wonder why later the children don't really express their feelings openly. Because, we come from a culture, Kiwis. It's like hard enough.
She'll be right, mate, get on with it.
We really come from that culture where we're not encouraged to be vulnerable or to show emotion or feeling or we're meant to be tough. That is not helping us. No,
absolutely not. And then there's a lot of emotional dysregulation as well, just not being able to understand what it is that you're feeling, and that in itself can be quite overwhelming. It's especially for children. And I did this little practice with my daughter recently. She just was feeling off for a few days and she didn't know why, and in the end, it didn't matter what, if she couldn't name the feeling, we just allowed it to be there, and, for her to be able to integrate it by just accepting it with some compassion. We did this little practice about it, and it was just beautiful for her just to recognize that, you can be with what it is you're experiencing without actually bypassing it, without numbing, without distracting it, because what we repress just gets stronger.
It comes back to bite.
Just gets stronger. So just allowing and accepting, naming the emotion is really helpful. And sometimes just journaling, just getting that stuff out of your head onto paper. You can actually create a little bit of separation from it, rather than it just swimming around in your mind and creating all this noise. Getting it down on paper, you actually become a little bit more, you can become a little bit more objective to what's going on, and really starting to see things with a little bit more clarity. So
download it as well. It's not just running around and around and around. You actually, it processes it in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So journaling is a wonderful practice. The other one is, of course, breathing. But I will add. You're the breathing queen. I would add to that it's really important, depending on the state of your nervous system. If you're feeling hyper aroused, you don't want to do some really activating breath patterns. So just be mindful that, you know, go onto YouTube, yeah, sure, find something to breathe to, but make sure that it's actually suiting what's going on within your current energetic state, because you don't want to add more stress to the system, and you can probably really add to
I mean,
that
and for a lot of people, where a lot of them would benefit from learning first how to really tap into just listening to the breath too initially, and understanding what that's telling us about our emotional state, because the breath will give us a lot of information if we just watch it, you know, quietly. And even before we get into practices and things like that. But I've found a lot of people don't, it's such an unconscious practice most of the time, that a lot of people are not realizing at all. They're not breathing, you know, they're often breathing very, very shallow. They're breathing very irregularly, and sometimes a lot of mouth breathing. And there's just so many things people do chronically that overbreathing, exactly. They're really affecting the whole you know, physiological state, you know, and the way the body's responding, and we're creating more stress by the way we're breathing. And yet we can reverse that and actually, like you say, come back into our window of tolerance using the breath.
Beautiful.
Fantastic tool.
It is. And like you say, you know, it is so important just to recognize the way that you are breathing, because there's different, you know, different emotions that you might be experiencing, like you say, that are going to create different breathing patterns within us. And we do tend to, over time, create, you know, quite entrenched patterns of either chest breathing or over breathing, not breathing at all, or very, very shallow. And that can actually, like you say, add to the emotional state that you're experiencing. So so just go back to, if you are feeling hyper aroused, which is in that fight flight, then definitely bringing in some breathing that is going to down regulate your nervous system to bring you back into the window of tolerance. So what that might look like is just a slower inhale and an elongated exhale. So just a just doing that for like 3 or 4 minutes is just so incredibly powerful.
That vocalization is quite nice too, you know, when you use sound, that's very, very soothing. And this also works on the nervous system quite powerfully. I mean, in my practice, we use quite a bit of mantra, but sighing, humming, these kind of things, very soothing.
And it's just something that you can even do in the presence of another person, that they're not necessarily going to know what it is that you're doing. If you can't remove yourself from the situation, is just to check in. Well, how am I breathing right now? Am I breathing at all? Just noticing to begin with, and then either, you know, doing that very gentle inhale, exhale, or if you're feeling a little bit hypo-aroused, which is that kind of shut down, then you want to bring a little bit more energy into the body. And it's okay to do that then, you know, so you might want to be going and you do that for a few minutes, and you might just feel like, you know, connecting again and re-engaging.
In Kundalini Yoga, we have a breath of fire. So it's very rhythmic, very heating, very energizing. It needs to be done correctly to get the right effect, but it's a real pick-me-up. It's
So those are just a couple of breathing patterns, you know, to choosing either one that really suits the state of your nervous system. And again, you know, even when choosing exercise to bring you back into your window of tolerance, just check in with your current state and what it is that you're feeling. If you're feeling in that fight flight, then going and doing a combat class or doing some really physical activity might not necessarily be exactly what is the most beneficial for your nervous system to bring you back into that window of tolerance. Sure, you might feel like you're getting those endorphins going and, you know, with the adrenaline and all the rest of it, but probably what is the best thing to do, in my personal opinion, would be to do something that is going to be a little bit more down regulating, So, you know, it could be some movement of some sort, but not something that's going to completely blow your system out. So, you know, moving to some music, putting some music on and moving to some music and just, you know, moving the body, but not creating too much energy in the system. And I don't know what your feelings are about that.
Yeah, I think it's really true. There are times when a very gentle approach is going to be far more beneficial. And I really love it when, you know, combining breath with movement. So even when walking, like you can do segmented breathing where you breathe with every step, you know, for part of the time. And then you can also put a mantra with that you can do lots of things. And actually what it does is it brings you into that, totally into that present moment where you actually, you know, you can shed all that, you know, worries, fears, all those sort of things, coming into that present moment, being conscious of that. And then in that moment, everything kind of, you notice it when you just do it for a couple of minutes, everything slows down, quietens down, and your perspective suddenly, you can see things for what they are. So yeah, and there are times when you need to really build the energy and move briskly. And yeah, so I think you're right. You need to know the tools, and then you need to know your own style and your own habits and your own patterns, and recognize them when they're coming, so that you know. I mean, and that's the sort of work you do with people too, isn't it, Mel? You kind of take them through to understand how they respond, and then teach them ways to recondition the nervous system. And
yeah. I mean, I call it the glue that allows the healing work to stick. And, you know, there's so many different things that we can do, but unless we're allowing the time for it to integrate and to embody this new way of being, it's just one more thing that we're doing. And so you can't learn new things when you're constantly living in survival mode, when you're constantly in your doing, you're busy, your workaholism. you can't really learn new things when you've got that dysregulated
you're just full up, you know, you're full up.
It's just like living from here up, you know, there's so in order for us to be able to integrate a new way of being and to truly embody it, and this is what I love about learning the energetics behind the nervous system and being able to embody these new ways of being, because we really want to be able to create sustainable well-being, to be able to truly thrive in life and business.
We need to come, because things are going to throw us off again. So we need to be able to, it's a constant. I mean, life goes on until we die. It's not just like we talk about this in Ayurveda as well. It's not just you come in and you understand how to work on your food and your sleep and whatever. You need to manage that every day for the rest of your life. It's not a one hit. We need to manage our life for the whole of our life. So
otherwise it becomes a bust and burn. busting, and I see this toggling so much in with entrepreneurs and people who are in business, that it's just busting themselves all the time, and then they burn out, and it's just this toggling. And so we want to be able to live as much as possible in our window of tolerance, because then we are at our most creative. We really are at our most creative.
We're living our purpose in that space, we're really able to.
We're connected to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, fantastic. Well, it's such a great subject. And I think the thing I would love to remind people too is that, everybody's worth taking the time to get to know yourself and looking after yourself. I think, especially for women, I think a lot of women, they'll put everyone else in the family first and forget that, they're the foundation often of the family. And if they're not a strong foundation, the rest of the family are going to suffer. It's a little bit like standing on quicksand and then you're holding everybody on your shoulders and you're all going down, So particularly for women, I think everyone obviously, but just when you see a mom and she's got kids and husband and everything, when she's strong, when she's stable, when she's taking time for herself, the whole family
regulated.
When she's regulated, everyone's they're all regulated, or her. And they all feel safe, and they all feel, and then they're able to live their best lives as well. So we're actually doing our family and our friends and everyone a favor if we take the time and invest in ourselves. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, you just create these generational patterns where it just gets passed on to the next person until somebody is brave enough and courageous to decide, well, this is not working.
Yeah, I
am the one that's responsible. I take full responsibility for what's not working in my life and decide to do the work. And sometimes it does take a bit of courage to be able to pick up the mirror and take responsibility for what's not working and do the deep inner work. And it's got to be the deep inner work. It's got to be the subconscious. It's got to be the belief system, the programs that are driving you unconsciously. You got to be able to heal that nervous system, regulate that nervous system, and seek out these people that are in our community that can help us do that, and all
I know, and it's getting
yoga and breath work that you do.
Yeah, I love that about taking responsibility, because I think it's easy to blame everybody else, isn't it? And when we finally say, but when we finally say, I'm responsible for my life and my happiness and my well-being and everything, and that's the first step, I think, is really taking that 100% responsibility for everything. And then, like you say, there are lots. I mean, that's one of the things I want to do with this little series too, is let people know there are lots of resources. There's lots of people out there that actually, they're just ready to help, and ready to support, and you're not alone, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay not to be doing okay as well. So
absolutely,
don't have to be tough all the time.
And you can only read so many self-help books and watch so many podcasts and YouTube videos, and sure, information is great, but it doesn't equal transformation.
It doesn't give you the human connection of someone supporting you through a process, so it's even like if you go to a class, like a yoga class, you can do it online, but what's the difference? Such a difference when you're with a teacher that you have a relationship with, that knows you, that you know them, and you're in a space that's held. It's a completely different experience. So
and the other thing I'll just quickly add to that is we have our blind spots. So quite often we can't even see what it is that's before, in front of us. And the reason why, we're driven in certain ways because of our program. And so, I need a coach, I need a mentor to often reflect back or mirror back at me my blind spots, because so often I can't see them.
Me too. And it can happen daily. There can just be something comes out and it's a thought that isn't serving, and you need those people who can sort of redirect it and give you a little bit of coaching, a little bit of reminders, and also to celebrate you and support you, when you actually are making progress. That's huge. That's a big part of it.
Definitely.
Mel, this conversation honestly is such a it's such a great topic, and it's so important. I really believe everybody needs to know this stuff. It should be taught in schools, and
totally.
We need to be making sure our kids know how to regulate themselves and how to understand how to manage themselves, and helping them to express their feelings and sit with their feelings like you did with your daughter. And it's thank you so much for sharing a lot of valuable information today. And it's not just information, it's really good examples. And and for everybody out there, I will definitely put Melisa's contact information. It's getting actually a bit dark. I just noticed.
There's been a bit of a light shift, hasn't there?
There has, So just been really lovely to talk to you today. And
thank you, Nikki.
And
thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me along and creating this, beautiful space to be able to share as well. I really appreciate what you're offering the community, especially during these tough times when we, are thrown into uncertainty, and it just can bring up so much for different people. And like I say, it depends on your current capacity and the flexibility and the titration that you have in your nervous system to take on more stuff. So
some people are right on that breaking point, and there's a lot of accumulated stress, and there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And some like we talked earlier, some people are enjoying the what's been going on with the lockdown, and other people it's just another the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. So
absolutely.
I really just hope that there will be something from all these little talks that'll help people, which I'm sure there will be. And I wanted to say thank you for you today. Thank you personally, and thank you for coming on to share your wisdom with all the people watching.
My absolute pleasure and honor. So thank you, Nikki.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Right. And we'll see each other in real life sometime very soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah.
Okay. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.